Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to Dhammaloka tonight on this Wednesday night for the midweek meditation. And we've set this night up mainly to help support our care group. And at this very moment now the telephone lines are open up in the care house, and you can call there if you'd like to call and talk over anything at all. You're very welcome to do that. The telephone number here in Perth is 08 is the area code, and the telephone number is 6270 4671. So that's the care line, and that care line is now open. So tonight we'll sit together for around about 60 minutes, and I'll just start off with a little introduction first of all, and then we'll do a meditation for half an hour or so, halfway through, and then maybe I'll just do a little recap and finish off. And then at 8 o'clock, for those of us that are here, we'll adjourn to the Vihara over the road and just have a cup of tea together, hopefully, and perhaps a bit of a chit-chat and getting to know you, a bit of fellowship here at the Dhammaloka Buddhist Centre. So last week I was talking to you about the care group really, and just the way that we do train our listeners, the care line listeners. And it is very much the same process as what we do when we sit meditation, when we are able just to sit reflectively, just watching the mind, the self-reflection, the reflection that brings up the awareness that we can be with, and just learn just to look at ourselves and to understand just what it is that's making us tick. And we talked about that a little bit last week with the conditioning process that's in there, because, you know, as I mentioned then, I think most of us really find that the way that we are, who we are, you know, why I am Dennis, for instance, is, and what makes Dennis tick and kick. It's really a bit of a mystery to me, because it's really all the information and the knowledge that I've got inside me has really come from just what I've learnt and the conditioning that I've received over the years, just starting in the very early years, no doubt from when I was a baby and first born, and very dependent on my mother and my father, and just the things that I learned from there, and the conditioning that went then into the earlier years of kindergarten and schooling, and then into secondary schooling, and then from friends and family. But also there's a great big cultural input too that comes as part of our conditioning too. So I've ended up as an Australian man. Some of you here are no doubt Australian women, and or from overseas. We all tend to get different conditioning, different ways of seeing the world. And all this is built on again later in our lives as we kind of live through and then learn how to learn from the government. The government's always got a little hand in the way that they condition us, and the way that they want Australians to be, or Americans, or British people, or European people. The governments always have a hand in the conditioning process too. So when I look at it, you can sort of notice that that's really where a lot of Dennis has come from, really, just all of this conditioning that comes in. And oftentimes it comes in without us even really knowing. It's just there. But then, of course, as a Buddhist, we also have the conditioning that we've brought into from past lives. And there might be countless numbers of those if we follow what even the Buddha's own lives. You know, he was really quite quite interesting just to see the way that all those past events, past universal events, conditioned him and made him who he was. And, eventually led him to be able to sort of see deeply into the nature of the universe and in himself, to understand who he was and to be able to understand it to such an extent that he was able to let that go and find peace and truth in the present moment. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, and especially in the meditation process itself, because I do intend and I hope to help you or guide you through this meditation so that you can actually start to see how it is that the Buddha was able to see himself so clearly and to understand the nature of humanity and just what it was that he needed to do to find this thing that he called enlightenment and understand what that meant. So that's what we'll do in the meditation. But as I mentioned last week too, I think it's really important in meditation, and I know that many of you have already probably quite solid practitioners in meditation, but I think you'll all agree that the process of being grounded, being in place when you're sitting meditation is really, really important. The fact is, as I was saying again last week, that this body and the way that we live on this world is really dependent on the world on this earth in such a profound way. We are part of this earth. When we eat food, we're eating food from the earth. Our bodies are made from elements and dirt and particles and dust that all are part of this earth. We breathe in the earth's atmosphere to keep us alive. We are very much, in many ways, sort of children of this earth. And it's just so very important to be comfortable with that, to understand that, because very often we do start to think that we're maybe a little bit separate, that we aren't really quite earthlings, and especially even to the extent where we start planning to perhaps go to Mars or go to the moon or visit the stars. But all of that, really, when you think of it in the context too, is really quite, it's probably quite a homely thing to do, really, too, because it's not only the earth that we're part of, we are also part of this universe. We're part of the whole system. In fact, all of the elements that make up all of our bodies, as I was saying last time, are elements that come from the stars. It's actually the stars itself that create the elements. It's created in no other place in this universe than in the stars. And that's just something that I've learnt in physics, that the stars are where the elements that make up our bodies is made. And in fact, even more profound and really shocking in a way than that is that any of the elements that are in our body that have a heavier atomic weight than iron are in fact made in supernova explosions in stars. So it's not only just that the elements in our bodies are made from different parts of the stars. It's actually the explosions of stars. So it's really the second generation, third generation stars that have been recycled through the system. We are already our bodies are already using that recycled material from stars, all the elements. So when you think of it, this grounding process is just so important to understand. And then to look a little bit further at the deeper connection that's there into the universe, We are children of the stars, children of the universe, but we're grounded into this earth. And it's always a very good thing to, I think, to be sort of comfortable with all of that when we start our meditation, when we start the practice. So that's really where I wanted to start with again tonight as we sit some meditation and just try to look forward and make our minds peaceful, comfortable, make our bodies first of all relaxed, peaceful, comfortable, and then our minds, relaxing our minds so that we can develop stillness. And it's usually in this still reflection is really where the best self-awareness, the best self-reflection comes from, because it means that our minds then are still enough to be able to see deeply into the nature of what it is that we are, the nature of our minds. And in seeing the nature of our minds, then we're also starting to see really the nature of this universe and the earth. And it starts to dawn on us that we are really part of all of this. It's all one in a way. The universe is there, and it's right there in our minds. And we can start to see even really that when we look into our minds, we're actually looking deep into the universe itself, into the stillness, into the spaciousness, the emptiness that's right there in the universe. And we can start to see this and start to intuit and notice it. And then in terms of listening to ourselves and understanding the traumas and the troubles that we have in our life, we start to be able to see all that in the right perspective, because we're starting to see all of that from the stillness and the emptiness that is there present in our minds all of the time, as we will once again discover it tonight in our meditation and any time that you do sit meditation, because this stillness is always there. It's never ever not there. This still consciousness that just pervades everything in the universe. So, what I'd like you to do now is to make yourself nice and comfortable. I'm just going to get myself a drink of water and make your backs nice and straight, head pointing towards the ceiling. You can then just close your eyes. As my preferred method of meditation, you don't have to follow this at all, but I always like to just put the right hand on the left and just have my thumbs touching, and just so that I'm sort of very aware of the tips of my fingers, because I find all of that really helps to relax my body. It's when you're kind of seeing this relaxation come into your body, you kind of notice it, well, I notice it really more as like a tingling. It's almost as if you can feel just the way that the energy kind of pits against the outside of your body, and it's almost as if there's this tingling that, especially as you start to get still and relaxed, but you can quite often notice it just from the tips of your fingers or around your lips, where there's more nerve endings that are there to give you that awareness of that. But then as you start to develop the awareness of that tingling and that sort of effervescent feeling, you become more aware of it and more you can start to develop it and amplify it a little more, and then it'll develop right through your body. And if you're lucky enough, you might even float up off your cushion. Or it feels like that anyway, not really quite floating up. But so, as you're sitting, just breathing closing your mouth and breathing through your nose. And then just becoming aware of your toes. Just start off with, well, any toe. You can pick a toe, little toe, big toe. Just see what you can feel into. You might be able to feel it against the floor, or if you need to, give it a wiggle so that you know your attention is right on it. And then just let your awareness run over the arch of your foot and into your heels and into your ankles. Just notice the ankles itself, just how they've got that articulated quality as they join onto the bottom part of your leg, the lower leg, and up into the bony shins and the calf muscles that are sort of floppy. Then through the bend in your knee, just feeling your knee. And again, once you're doing this and you're starting to notice inside your knees and your legs, if there's any areas that are got some tension there, just let it relax. Just let it go. Just wish it well. Then just move the attention on through to the thighs and the big muscles of the thighs. The strength that you can feel in there. And then through onto your bottom, and you can feel how your bottom is sitting in the seat. Just feel the weight of your body through your bottom. And just be aware that the gravity is there, just anchoring you down into your seat. And just letting that be very relaxed, very nice. And then as you move your attention into your back, it's always good I'll sort of think of it more as just like letting it expand and float. Just letting your midriff and your upper torso just to, more it's like it's just the energy just lifting it up so that it feels strong. But then back round your tummy, there's usually a fair bit of activity going on there. The surges and gurglings. Then moving up into the upper back, around your shoulder blades. And then into the front of your chest. And maybe you can notice some of the rhythms that are there, the heart rhythm. Even sometimes the little rushes and almost like little clickety-clacks that go on. Then just feeling how your arms are hanging loosely from your shoulders and down to your elbows, bent and into your forearms, through your wrists, into your hands and your fingers. And then just round your fingers, just feeling all that sensation that's there. If there is some tingling there, just to be aware of it. But perhaps then you might even be able to sort of notice or see how that same tingling is there elsewhere in your body, on your body. Maybe not quite as strong, but nonetheless. It's like fizzing all over. Then as you can see that, you can be confident that you are starting to relax, your body's relaxing. And then moving your attention up through your neck and into your head, just making sure that it's nicely balanced on top of your shoulders. Then up behind your eyes, around the top of your head and around your mouth and lips. And once again, these are areas where you can just start to notice that tingling. But if you're feeling tense anywhere, if you just come back and you notice that there's a tension spot somewhere, just go to it and just let it relax. Just give that area some attention and just allow it to relax. So now that you're just sitting, you're not thinking, but there's just the words that I'm speaking, coming and going. No need to try and understand what they mean or try and work them out. Just let the words be. And just let the body relax, just to relax deeply. And this is setting the mind up to also be relaxed, so that it's not moving, it's not thinking. And even just this far into the meditation, you can probably already start to notice that the mind's quite still. And it feels very nice. Just to be sitting relaxed, still. Then when you're ready, when you feel that you can just have your attention come onto your breath. And just notice that the very relaxed breath is breathing in and breathing out. But your mind is not moving. So you can notice that this breath is beginning and it's ending in the stillness of your mind. Even just at this very beginning stage, we can notice the way the breath starts to flow in, and then it flows out, all in the stillness, and you don't have to do anything. You're not making the breath flow in and flow out. It's just doing it by itself. As you're breathing in, it's conditioning an out-breath. Then as you're breathing out, it's conditioning an in-breath. So the cycle of beginning and ending of the breath becomes very apparent. And you can start to notice that all this is happening in the still consciousness of your mind. You are conscious of the way this breath is moving in and out. And you can know your consciousness, the still consciousness. And when I say this, I mean that you're able to make a subject of the breath as it flows in and out. It becomes a subjective experience. So you can know this experience. Now I'll just leave you for a moment or two just to enjoy that subjective experience of the breath as it flows in and out. Of the still consciousness of your mind. Now, as you're watching your breath, you're probably also just noticing that this still consciousness has a quality. You can actually notice what it feels like, what it is. Once again, you can know this stillness. You can know it subjectively. And as you're allowing yourself to be with the stillness, I'm sure that you're starting to notice also that the mind is really moving to a contented state, because it's very pleasant to be with the stillness. You can start to notice that the first two of the five hindrances are gradually abating, gradually getting smaller or less. So that is that there's any desire that is in the mind is starting to lessen. But then also at the same time any aversion, which is the second hindrance, is also starting to lessen. You're starting to see that this meditation provides an opportunity to be free of these first and second hindrances, to be free of the desire and the aversion. So that the mind becomes very content in the stillness, content just to be in this place. And then you can also start to notice that the third and the fourth hindrance, that of restlessness and tiredness and sloth and torpor, those two hindrances, the third and the fourth hindrance, are also starting to abate, starting to lessen, become less of a problem in the mind, and this too in itself contributes more to this contentment. Just this feeling and this idea, this knowledge that when the mind is in this quite still and peaceful state, it's very pleasant, very beautiful. You can notice that it's something to aspire towards. Very different to when the mind is racing and thinking. When it's troubled or stressed. It's just this beautiful state of contentment that's there, that's left. So we can see that the first four of the five hindrances are quite subdued. And while we're not trying to think too much about all of this, the fifth hindrance of doubt is also away from us. Because we have this knowledge, we have this knowing of what it's like when the mind is still. Beautifully content. We can still be aware of the breath as it flows in and it flows out. Can be aware that that's quite a good anchor, quite a good place where we can hold our mind still. But then as we start to understand the stillness, and we can start to be with the stillness more and more. We start to notice how beautiful that is, how much contentment it brings. And from this place of stillness, I do also like to just reflect at this movement of the breath as it moves in and out. Is really very much a model of the second and the third noble truth. You know, that you can say that it's like conditioning beginning, dukkha beginning, when the breath comes in and then flowing out. The third noble truth, ending, dukkha finishing. But most important of the lot is we can now fully appreciate that when our mind is in this state of contentment, with the stillness present, it is very close to the present moment. And because it's close to the present moment, we're getting very close to truth. Close to the middle way between extremes, between the past and the future. We're moving towards the truth of the present moment. So in a moment I'm going to ring the bell just to end this meditation session. But when I do that, I would like you to just to continue to be aware of the stillness as you come back into this room. Just to be aware of any beginnings and endings that you can see. They'll all be at different scales, of course. The breath has a fairly short beginning and ending. And you can just sense that as feeling sense. And of course you've been using your hearing facility through the whole meditation, just that ability to hear the words that are being spoken as they begin and they end in the stillness of your mind. And then when you come to be aware of the whole of your five senses, when you come back to the room, you will start to notice just the way that tasting and smelling and seeing along with the hearing and the tactile senses of feeling are all doing the same thing. They're arising and they're finishing in the present moment. Certainly at different scales, depending on what you're observing or what you're experiencing. day takes a certain amount of time before it finishes and turns into night. And then a night takes a certain amount of time before it finishes and conditions itself to come into day. And so on. Same for a year. Or we can even move right out to the full length of your life. Dennis being born into this still consciousness and then moving right through a whole entire life. Hopefully with a few more years to go. But you will be able to start to notice how this still consciousness provides a context for all of these conditions as they arise and finish. And when we come back to the room, I would just like to talk to you just a little bit more about dealing with the troublesome conditions and some of the troublesome things that come up in the stillness of our mind. So I'm going to ring the bell now 3 times, and on the third striking of the bell, if you just wait until the resonance finishes, and you can just use this time to contemplate and just reflect on what's happened for you during this time. So I do hope that you're able to, now that you're back into the room, just to be able to bring that still consciousness back with you. Can you notice the stillness still there? Because it certainly doesn't disappear when you come back to full normal awareness, what we might call normal awareness. That stillness is always there. And this is very important. It's very important for our listeners. And once again, I would like to just remind the people that are on the internet and just watching in that the telephone lines here for the care group are now open. And if you would like to call and talk over anything at all, that telephone number is there and it's open now. And the telephone number is 08 for the area code here in Western Australia. And the telephone number is 62704671. And you can find that, of course, on the internet too. The telephone number is there on the drop-down cascade for the care line. So the call lines are open, so you're very welcome to call. But just with this stillness, I would like to just talk to you perhaps a little bit more about that stillness and how we can use it, especially for when we're listening to ourselves, when we're listening to troublesome things that come up. Just in this last 5 or 10 minutes or so that we've got together. Because it's really in this stillness that we're able to really make a difference in our lives with the troubles that we have in our lives. Because this stillness is very much a healing quality. It's a beautiful quality where we can surround our troubles with the stillness, and you'll see that this stillness, just as it's penetrated into you during this meditation to bring about that peace and that quality of relaxation that we've had, it will do the same things with any troublesome feelings or things that might be going on for you, things that you don't like, or troublesome things that are happening in your life. You know, some bad things that have happened to you, or stuff that's that you find difficult to deal with. If you can find this stillness and bring the stillness to bear, to allow this stillness to be around all of these tensions, these troubles, the stillness will just very naturally, if you allow it, just very naturally break them up. It breaks up all these conditions because they are really just made from, or they're aggregated really from that still consciousness into into these tensions and troubles that do cause us the issues. And that's very much what we try to do as listeners when we're listening on the Buddhist Society care line here. It's just really a matter of being able to listen without judgment, without making any particular comment about anything or trying to fix it necessarily. Because usually when we want to fix something like this and you get your hand in and you start meddling and twisting with it, oftentimes what all it does is really just brings you more tension. It brings you more, just twists things up sometimes a little more. But the idea of just allowing these troubles to be free, just to let them go, so that we don't hang on to them, we don't grasp them, we don't, in a way, or grasp them or try to push them away in anger, so that we just allow them to be, just to let it all be. And then more often than not, these troubles that we have in our life will just relax. The stillness gets into them and the stillness just works its magic, and there's a healing that happens. So this is really a wonderful thing for us to start to see and understand, the way to live our lives, the way to be with ourselves. And as I was starting to mention last week, I mean, this I think is a really particularly interesting time now, because there is a lot of tension and trouble in the world, a lot of, this way and that way. You've got, especially since we've had President Donald Trump, who has, I think in many ways, done us a service in the way that he's being able to show really how these tensions and troubles in our world can manifest. There's people who really love him, and there's people that really hate him, people that want to get rid of him. And it's quite astonishing just really how this dichotomy has sort of happened, and how that people, often I've noticed it myself, just when you're sort of talking to different people, how the people will defend their position, and it's, ideas and views and opinions have become quite polarised. And, many harsh words have been spoken, and there's trouble certainly all through the United States, but in large measure too through the world. But the way of kind of dealing with all these things too is really, in a way, is just to use your skillful means, just use the stillness, the clarity that comes there in your mind with the still meditation that you've been able to develop, that clarity and the ability to be able to see deeply and to be able to be empathetic, be compassionate. And that compassion just naturally allows the process of this tension, the tension and trouble that we bring into our lives and into the world. The compassion can then just allow the whole thing to relax. And then, of course, there's the metta, the loving kindness. These are again, I'm just going through now the 4 Brahma Viharas. These are qualities of the Buddha. These are qualities that the Buddha naturally develops with enlightenment. And they're certainly there in the stillness for you to notice. This kindness, of loving kindness. And really too the sympathetic joy, that medito, the way that we can be happy for other people's goodness, the way that we can be happy for other people's good fortune, happiness. And then of course the 4th Brahma Vihara is equanimity, just that equanimous nature of the way that we are able to just let things be. And the more that we can just let things be, the more we can relax and the deeper that you can go and the more understanding that will start to develop and intuit around the present moment. So we're coming up to time, and I know that there are 1 or 2 members of the care group who are keen to have us have fellowship and socialise. So I'd like to leave my comments there, and thank you for your kind listening. And we'll see you again next Wednesday night, and we'll do it all again with the care group in mind. So thank you for your attendance tonight, and please stay and have a cup of tea, and we'll just get to know each other a little bit better. So thank you for your attendance. Thank you. And if you'd like to pay respects to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, please feel free to do that as well. And but I don't think we're on stream anymore. But maybe I can answer her, or maybe we can all. Maybe it's something we can talk about over a cup of tea. Do you want to read the question in, Linda, just so people? I might seem a bit of a klutzy, but I have a hard time seeing. Is that back on? Oh. Do you want to speak the question? I'm just going to turn my microphone around so that Linda, who is the BSWA secretary, is going to read the question for us.
So we have one question tonight from Cassandra from Sweden. And she says that I'm struggling to find compassion for people who have caused me distress and suffering. Do you have any advice?
Yes, well, I think, the answer to that question is really it's a question for all of us, really, isn't it? Because, I think we all have trouble. If it's not with other people that cause you trouble and suffering, it's really ourselves, our own mind, our own trouble. But for usually when we feel this way, in the way that it's causing suffering, because it's just again I'm sort of brought back to this idea of the dichotomy that goes on now between, or just looking at the suffering that's there in the United States and also here in Australia too, where there's a whole lot of Australian people here, I think, that are kind of really think that we should be dealing with climate change in one way, and then there's a whole lot of people that think that we should be dealing with climate change in another way, and it does cause a lot of tension and trouble, a lot of anger and discomfort for different people. But whether it's someone that maybe I'm not quite sure what's happened to Cassandra, but if somebody is causing you grief or is trying to put you down, or maybe trying to sort of change your thinking, trying to change the way that you're thinking, you don't like it. It's hard just really to say, but any one of these conditions that causes this trouble and suffering like that has really always helped with a still mind. You can really never ever go past just finding a place to relax with yourself when you're feeling too het up, too tense, unable to deal directly with all of those arrows of fire that are being fired at you, whether they're literal or whether they're just maybe misunderstanding that other people is directing towards you. But it is always very good just to sit and make yourself relaxed. So just relax yourself. You can do that by just breathing in and out, just watching your breath. And if you've got a chance to sit before you fire back with any bad speech or trouble that might exacerbate the issue, if you can just have a moment to reflect, even just a few seconds, just to stop and if you can, find your breath. And then if you can find your breath, try and find that stillness. And when that stillness is there, you then have you have a datum then. You've got a datum that you can measure the way that you respond. So you can measure and decide to respond in maybe a compassionate way, and maybe you'll start to see that the reason why this poor person is causing you trouble is because perhaps they're in trouble themselves, perhaps they're suffering and hurting themselves. Most of the time that usually is the case. There is some problem. But it may be that they're firing arrows of pain at you because they really don't like you for one reason or another, or there might be some issue like that. Well, then you can reflect on that as well. But all this reflection can really only happen, and you can really only do it properly when there's stillness of mind, when the mind is quite still. So when the mind is still, then the right answer will be there for you, the right way to just deal with the trouble that's come up. But it usually always does fall back to those 4 Brahma Viharas. If you can just sort of develop those and know about those, well then you're always in the hunt to make a good job of it. So Cassandra, I hope that answers your question, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. turn my radio off.